didn't take long at all. Even as the bodies were being counted inside the Orlando nightclub, there was rampant fear and certainty that this was yet another Islamic or ISIS-inspired attack on Americans. Caution was urged in jumping to conclusions. More so now, new information coming out that perhaps this killer was more disturbed than driven to jihad, which segues into the continuing conversation over the future of Muslims in America. Donald Trump reiterating his call to ban all Muslims, despite this killer being American-born, and the continuing battle being waged over whether this is a war against radical murderers or an entire religion. Now, speaking of war, Donald Trump has once again lit the candle on a battle against the American press. This time it's the Washington Post and his sites, and they're not the first media outlet to be banned. Is it not dangerous for a presidential candidate fearing with legit media doing their job? And what does it say about a candidate and his apparent thin skin? Your phone calls will be a big part of what we do. Get on the line now. Save your place in the queue at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. You will be called upon. So let's get to work. I'm Ed Berliner. This is the Hardline for Tuesday, June 14th, 2016.
Groups like ISIL and Al-Qaeda want to make this war a war between Islam and America, or between Islam and the West. They want to claim that they are the true leaders of over 1 billion Muslims around the world who reject their crazy notions. They want us to validate them by implying that they speak for those 1 billion plus people, that they speak for Islam. That's their propaganda. That's how they recruit. And if we fall into the trap of painting all Muslims with a broad brush and imply that we are at war with an entire religion, then we are doing the terrorist work for them.
In light of America constantly being in the crosshairs of those who seek to kill us because of economic reasons, religious differences, past wars for which those in power cannot go back in time and repair, we cannot automatically say someone is wrong when they leap to connections between terrorism and religion. There are simply too many pieces of evidence that we have to pull from that there is a faction in the world that uses their faith as the basis to kill Americans, the French, co-workers in an office, or those simply seeking to dance the night away in Central Florida. But at the same time, we must as a nation seek to balance what happens and why it happens. We perhaps should find ourselves in the immediate aftermath of such a nightmare to first deal with and console the victims and their families. Allow a few hours, maybe a day, to pass before we crash headfirst into campaign rhetoric and assertions that I know everything because I'm a former cop or I used to work in the government. Because seeking to be first with an assertion or comment is not important. Being right and factual should be first and foremost for everyone, whether in the media or not, because the facts will lead us in the right direction toward discussing and perhaps one day solving the issue at hand. Who was Omar Mateen? Why did he take the lives of 49 people and injure dozens more? Was he another of the mentally deranged who fell under the pervasive sway of internet messages? Or, as we are learning now, was he a man wrestling with his sexuality to the point of targeting gays because in the end, he was gay himself? And his diseased mind saw this as the logical recourse to his inner demons. All right, put it all on the table. Let's get to work. Your comments will be part of this discussion. Be on the line right now at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. First up, we're joined by the award-winning Southern California journalist and 18-year veteran of print, online, and broadcast media, former editor of LGBT Weekly, now political columnist at 429 Magazine, Thom Senzee joins us on the Hardline. Thom, thanks so much for joining us, and let me get right to this first question. In your opinion, from what you have seen and what you are gathering, the guy in Orlando, is he Islamist, gay hater, diseased mind? What was the first thing that came to your mind?
You know, Ed, thank you for having me on. It's been a while since we've chatted, and I'm sorry that it's under these circumstances. I want to commend you and Newsmax in general for being that voice of reason that some may consider your network slightly right of center, but you're no Fox News, and you certainly have brought a humanity and a decency to your coverage, and I thank you for that. especially you, Ed. And, you know, a lot of things come to mind when we think of Mr. Mateen. Deranged is certainly foremost among those. The president said it eloquently. You know, we're Americans first. We're actually human beings first, and the way I look at it, that's human beings in the care of God, in the care of a creator who does see us all equally as his children. What Mr. Mateen didn't understand, apparently, we don't know all of the facts, but it seems clear that he was a regular at that nightclub. And I did hear one report from an eyewitness who said he had seen him go home with another man, presumably for what adults go home together from a bar from time to time. His version of religiosity, of Muslim religiosity in this case, may have impacted him with so much guilt that he thought that in order to kill what he saw as a demon, which was actually just his sexual orientation possibly, as something that he needed to slay. And it is a perverse expression of religiosity and of Islam. Radical Islam, there I said it, it's not a magic spell. I don't think it's going to stop anything. May or may not have been part of the equation, but there are a lot of things that we have yet to learn.
Let me get to exactly what you just discussed. You talked about one of the patrons at Pulse Orlando. This individual was interviewed by The Guardian, and this is the one who said that Mateen was a regular at the club. Here's the bite.
On the weekend, sometimes he would be there. Sometimes he would miss a couple of weeks and then be in again. He was regular. We consider that regular. He was trying to pick up people, men. He's a homosexual, and he was trying to pick up men. He would walk up to them, and then he would maybe put his arm around them or something, and maybe try to get them to dance a little bit or something, and then go over and buy a drink or something. That's what people do at gay bars.
Tom, we're a nation right now that talks about terrorism. We have been facing this since years before 9/11, the first World Trade bombing, the wars that have gone on here around the world in many ways. We seem to many times knee-jerk immediately towards terrorism, Islamic terrorism, because we seem to be comfortable with that, and certain politicians are very comfortable in going there. Is there a greater predilection for us to go to Islamic terrorism first before we go to murdering gays because we're more comfortable with it? We're more easily tuned to it?
Well, boy, that is the question, isn't it? And I'm not going to fault anyone for, I do it myself. I'm not going to fault anyone for having that predilection. I think, you know, I mean, as a liberal myself, I don't even like saying the word progressive, like I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm a liberal. As a liberal, and someone who's very politically oriented, I find myself saying, "Oh gosh, is this going to be one that the you know, gun advocates are going to claim as a victory, or is this one that has?" And I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm going to be honest. Is this something that we can leverage on our side to you know, make a better world by showing that we're as human as anyone else, as flesh and blood as anyone else? And let me backpedal even a little bit. I don't know if I've ever been this transparent on network TV. My first impulse was, oh my God, I hope there's not too many people dead. And the sadness that I think we all feel as Americans, as human beings, and seeing these people so vulnerable. I mean, where else are you more vulnerable than at a nightclub where, you know, you go to listen to music, be with friends, hold a drink, not a gun, and not be thinking about having to defend yourself from anything but maybe a little rejection, you know, to see these people struggling, holding on for life and engaging in acts of heroism. And it's a story that is still unfolding, and we need to find a place to meet together and just return to common sense. And your language in questioning me right now expresses, I think, maybe a new door opening like we haven't seen before. I hope this realism continues.
Well, let's also, couple minutes we got left, Tom, and the one thing that I tell people about this show is we will look at everything from both sides, every single instance. We will make sure of that because we want to be journalistically correct in what we do. If we're going to do that, do we not also have to come to the realization that it is possible that while this individual may have been someone who was targeting members of the LGBT community, this was someone who also had a mental illness possibly, or an ability to come under the thrall of what is now one of the biggest problems in the world, and that is Islamic radical terrorism that seems to pull these people in. It changes them from rational human beings into killers. It is a distinct possibility that that is the case. It is just one of the first times we have seen this intersection of hate that goes with Islamic terror and with the terror that the LGBT community feels in their own communities.
I see where you're going with that, Ed, and it can be considered for sure. But I would say that the fact that it seemed almost like an afterthought, like, oh wow, I'm in the middle of this massacre, I'm going to call 911 because I forgot to write a post-it saying that this is for al-Baghdadi. And then he also claimed allegiance to ISIS's mortal enemy, Hezbollah, as Director Comey so rightly pointed out. This was a man who was clearly mentally ill, violent, dangerous, and a lot of people know it. I think we know that there's an arrest in the works. I suspect it's probably going to be his wife. She should have said something. Radical Islam, extremist Islam, radical Christianity that ends with abortion clinics massacred. Any sort of radicalization toward violence is terrible.
Let me do this, Tom. I only have about 30 seconds left, but let me get to this very quickly from you. Is it not fair to say that how the LGBT community and gays are treated around the world, where they are executed by many governments around the world, that we have people right now? I think we lost Tom.
I'm sorry, I think it's just my screen.
Okay, is it not fair to say very briefly that we have a community living in this country right now that is absolutely scared spitless that terror is coming for them?
Do you mean the LGBT community specifically? We don't scare that easy. AIDS almost wiped us out, and we didn't stop fighting. We're here to stay, and we are vulnerable on certain levels, but no more than anyone else. And no, we're concerned and on heightened alert, but we are not going to be scared away by anyone.
Tom, it is the thing that no matter who we are or what we are, we cannot give in to fear at any time. It's good to hear you say that. Thom Senzee, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. Thanks so much for joining us, my friend. The Hardline continues.